Bum, bum, bum. That could be the theme music. I love the term radio ready because it's like my mix is ready for radio. You know, like, oh, it's totally ready to be like squeezed out through some half-working system in a 2004 Toyota Corolla. Hi everyone, I'm Al Easler, Senior Audio Engineer here at LANDR. Welcome back to another episode of Ask an Engineer. I am an engineer. That was terrible.
No.
Today's episode, we're going to talk about what's the single biggest thing you can do to get your mixes from thin and garage-ish, the question asker's words, not mine, to radio ready. If you like these videos and you'd like to continue to see them grow, flourish, and find their place in this crazy daisy world, please like and subscribe below. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum. So my first question that I would ask is, why do they sound thin and garage-ish? If you just bring up the faders with no processing or anything, do they sound thin and garage-ish? Or do they sound all right, and by the end of the mixing process, things start to sound thin and garage-ish? That'll determine where you need to look in terms of fixing the problem. So if you're just pulling up the faders and things don't sound great to begin with, the absolute best thing you can do is retrack. Get the sounds right at the source. No amount, I know it sounds daunting and it sounds like it's going to take more time. It never does. It's always a better, quicker answer to go back and fix things at the source. Garbage in, garbage out. Where you want to be is if you bring up the faders, things generally sound like they should. Things sound roughly in the ballpark. Yes, they're going to need a few tweaks, a few nips and tucks. But I mean, if you're in the unfortunate position where you're stuck with these tracks, there's absolutely nothing you can do. You've received the mix, the artist refuses to, change anything about it. There's a couple of things you can approach. There's no magic bullet. There's no like, oh, just insert this plugin and everything's going to be amazing. Manufacturers would like you to believe that, but it's not true. You could try adding parts. I know that's maybe can be a little bit controversial, especially if you're just a mix engineer and you're not really in the role of being a producer or the artist or anything like that. Actually adding played parts to a song kind of walks a fine line. Even if it's just doubling something an octave down, if there's a line that sounds kind of thin and no amount of EQ can beef it up, just learning the part and doubling it an octave down, either on a keyboard, on a synth, on some kind of, style appropriate or song appropriate sound. Just a few little touches like that can really flesh out an arrangement that is otherwise sort of lacking. If you're working for people and you don't sort of have a mandate to just record whatever you want on their track, maybe clear it with them first or present it in the way that you're not trying to steal their thunder, you're just trying to make the song sound better, and this is the best way you have of doing that. If that's not an option, you could resort to Trickery to kind of do the same thing. Pitch shift plugins, harmonizing plugins, thicken up sound. If you have any analog outboard, running stuff out through stuff with transformers, stuff with tubes, that can help a little bit in terms of thickening things up and giving it some texture. Beyond that, I mean, really the only thing I can think of if things sound thin and lifeless, maybe you're cutting too much in the low end. And it can be, especially when you're mixing and you're trying to get things to come out and have clarity and presence, the lower mid-range I find is a very difficult range to work with because a little bit too much and things start to sound soggy, woolly, woofy, muddy, congested, all kinds of adjectives that you wouldn't really want to have applied to your mix. But cut a little bit too much and things start to sound a little thin. Immediately when you start cutting in that range, there's almost this, you think you're gaining clarity and gaining a sense of openness and articulation, but you're losing sort of the foundation that everything sits on. So I would pay very particular attention to the 100 hertz to 300 hertz range. See if you're just cutting way too much stuff in there. For the sake of clarity, maybe dedicate a couple of instruments that are really going to fill out that range. So the rest can, be a little bit more sprightly, but you want to make sure that that range is solid and present. It creates a good sonic foundation for for everything else to sit on top of. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this mix that, you know, the bass feels disconnected from the highs. And that, to me, is kind of a hallmark of, when I think of a thin sounding mix, that's sort of what comes to mind. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more of them, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And feel free to leave any questions you have in the comment section below.